A figure named Elias dwelled in the labyrinthine expanse of the megalopolis of materialism, a sprawling urban behemoth where skyscrapers pierce the heavens like Babel's aborted towers, and the ceaseless hum of commerce drowns the whispers of the soul. Elias, a mid-level functionary in the corporate colossus of a Corp, embodied the archetype of the modern everyman, ensnared in the Weberian iron cage of bureaucracy. His days were a monotonous procession of spreadsheets, performance reviews, and the relentless pursuit of ephemeral upgrades, smartphones, status symbols, and social media validations. Yet, beneath this veneer of complacency stirred a profound disquiet, a Kierkegaardian angst that gnawed at his existential core. Elias encountered the catalyst for his odyssey in this milieu, redolent of Baudrillard's hyperreality where signs supplant substance, a tattered volume, illicitly downloaded from the dark web, titled ** The Codex of Eternal Verities Star. This digital artifact, akin to Bunyan's scriptural muse, unveiled to him the fragility of his world, a city of destruction poised on the brink of cataclysm, not from apocalyptic fire but from the implosion of hollow consumerism and ecological hubris. Tormented by visions of impending doom, floods of data overload, pandemics of isolation, and the collapse of virtual empires, Elias resolved to flee. His family, ensconced in the domestic simulacrum of suburban bliss, derided his epiphany as midlife delusion. "Stay," pleaded his spouse, a devotee of retail therapy, "for the mortgage binds us, and the algorithms predict our happiness." His progeny, avatars in the metaverse, dismissed him as obsolete code. Undeterred, Elias donned a backpack laden with essentials, a water-purifying flask symbolizing purification, a compass etched with moral axioms, and the Codex as his hermeneutic guide, and embarked, leaving behind the siren calls of streaming services and instant gratification. No sooner had he traversed the city's outskirts than he plunged into the quagmire of despondency, a metaphorical morass manifesting as a derelict industrial zone, its ground sodden with toxic runoff from failed dreams and societal neglect. Here, the mire sucked at his resolve, embodying the depressive inertia that afflicts the postmodern subject in the wake of Lyotard's grand narrative dissolution. Elias floundered, his progress impeded by the weight of self-doubt. "What folly to abandon stability for this uncertain quest," he lamented, echoing the existential nausea of Sartre's Roquentin. Salvation arrived in the form of aid, a streetwise counselor from a non-profit shelter, who extended a rope of encouragement. "Many sink here," aid intoned, "victims of the system's manufactured despair. But grasp this lifeline of community, and you shall emerge." With aid's assistance, Elias extricated himself, learning that solidarity, not solitary striving, navigates the sloughs of psychic turmoil. Pressing onward, Elias arrived at the threshold gate, a derelict subway entrance guarded by legality, a stern attorney in pinstripes, emblematic of Kantian moral imperatives divorced from grace. "Adhere to the codes," legality barked, proffering contracts of self-improvement apps and ethical algorithms. "Merit your passage through diligence and compliance." Yet, as Elias attempted ascent via this legalistic escalator, it malfunctioned, hurling him back into doubt. It was then that Evangelist, a nomadic preacher with a podcast on spiritual awakening, intervened. Clad in recycled fabrics and wielding a tablet inscribed with prophetic memes, Evangelist directed Elias toward the wicket gate of humility, a narrow alleyway graffitied with invitations to surrender ego. "Knock," urged Evangelist, "and the portal to authenticity shall yield." Elias complied, and the gate creaked open, admitting him to the interpreter's loft, a loft apartment repurposed as an avant-garde gallery of existential tableaus. The interpreter, a sage curator with spectacles perched on a nose scarred by intellectual battles, unveiled installations that decoded the human condition. First, a holographic display of a man ensnared in virtual reality goggles, oblivious to the real flames encroaching, symbolizing the perils of digital escapism. "Behold," intoned the interpreter, "how illusion devours substance, as in Plato's cave reimagined for the information age." Next, a kinetic sculpture of dust accumulating on a pedestal of passions, illustrating the futility of unchecked desires amid Schopenhauer's will to live. Elias absorbed these lessons, his hermeneutic lens sharpening, preparing him for the cruciform burden relief station ahead, a derelict chapel where, in a moment of cathartic epiphany, he shed his backpack's metaphorical load of accumulated guilt, watching it dissolve in a font of forgiveness, much like the Lacanian reel piercing the symbolic order. Ascending the gradient of adversity, a steep urban incline lined with billboards peddling shortcuts, payday loans, life hacks, and biohacks, Elias encountered diversions. At the base lounged Sloth, a couch surfer binge-watching nihilistic series, Midway, worldly wisdom, a venture capitalist touting blockchain salvation, and at the summit, a pavilion of ease where timidity and mistrust hawked insurance against spiritual risks. Elias, fortified by the Codex's admonitions, persevered, invoking Naiad's ** a more farty * to embrace the struggle. Cresting the hill, he glimpsed the palace beautiful, a co-op of enlightened souls, discretion, prudence, piety, and charity, who hosted him in discourses on virtue ethics, blending Aristotelian eudaimonia with feminist care theory. Refreshed by their symposium, Elias descended into the valley of abasement, a fog-shrouded underpass where Apollyon, reimagined as a charismatic tech mogul, assailed him with temptations of augmented reality empires. "Join my metaverse," Apollyon snarled, "and rule as a god in silicon." Elias, wielding the sword of discursive reason, a debate honed by the interpreter's lessons, repelled the assault, emerging scarred but resolute. The journey deepened into the Gorge of Shadows, a subway tunnel echoing with existential dread, where whispers of mortality amplified Heidegger's *Geworfenheit star. Here, Elias confronted specters of doubt, atheism's void, relativism's abyss, and the specter of insignificance in a multiverse of indifference. Chanting verses from the Codex, he navigated this phenomenological nadir, emerging into daylight only to face Vanity Fair, a sprawling megamall of commodified spectacles. This carnivalesque bazaar, Bakhtinian in its inversion of norms, peddled every vice, fashion idols, celebrity cults, and influencer indulgences. Faithful, a fellow wanderer encountered en route, a barista with a tattooed manifesto of integrity, joined Elias, but the fair's magistrates, arbiters of cancel culture and corporate orthodoxy, arrested them for heresy against consumerism. Buy or perish, they decreed. In the ensuing trial, reminiscent of Kafka's absurd bureaucracies, Faithful was martyred via social media execution, his reputation algorithmically shredded, while Elias escaped, bearing the martyr's digital relic as a talisman. Fleeing the fair's glittering deceptions, Elias veered into Bypath Meadow, a seductive shortcut through gentrified parks promising work-life balance. Lured by vain confidence, a life coach spouting positive psychology platitudes, he strayed, only to tumble into the dungeon of Dispa, a derelict warehouse guarded by giant Despair and his consort Diffidence. Here, in this Foucauldian panopticon of self-surveillance, Elias languished, tormented by loops of regret and suicidal ideation. Why persist in this Sisyphean farce? Despair mocked, echoing Camus' absurd. Salvation dawned with Hopeful, another captive, a resilient activist, who recalled the key of promise from the Codex, affirmations of transcendent purpose. Unlocking their chains, they escaped, vowing mutual sustenance. The Odyssey wended through enchanted grounds, somnolent suburbs where complacency lulled pilgrims into stasis, navigated by vigilant dialogue. Approaching Doubting Citadel, a fortress of skepticism manned by postmodern deconstructionists, Elias and Hopeful parried volleys of doubt, Derrida's difference, Foucault's power knowledge, with the shield of faith's apophatic mystery. Victorious, they traversed the land of Beulah, a verdant urban oasis of contemplative gardens, where intimations of eternity perfumed the air, blending Wordsworthian sublime with Teilhard de Chardin's Omega Point. At last, the river of transition loomed, a turbulent digital divide symbolizing mortality's threshold. No bridge spanned it, each must ford alone. Elias, assailed by currents of fear, regrets of forsaken kin, specters of unachieved potentials, clung to Hopeful's encouragement. Recall the Codex's assurance, Hopeful urged, that beyond lies the polis of plenitude, where alienation yields to communion. Submerging, Elias endured the chill of finitude, emerging on the far bank to ascending choirs of algorithmic harmony. Celestial emissaries, avatars of virtue, escorted him up the mount to the gates of the eternal metropolis, a radiant ecumenopolis of inclusive harmony, where hierarchies dissolved into holographic unity. Yet, the allegory extends, ignorance, a smug rationalist who bypassed the gate via intellectual shortcuts, was rebuffed at the portal, plummeting into abyssal rejection. Elias, admitted, beheld the throne of the ultimate architect, a nexus of quantum interconnectedness where all journeys converged. Reunited with Faithful and predecessors, he partook in the Symposium of Saints, eternally unpacking the semiotics of salvation. In this postmodern recasting of Bunyan's seminal allegory, we discern not merely a transposition of 17th-century Puritanism into 21st-century idioms but a profound interrogation of the human condition amid late capitalism's discontents. Elias's Peregrination mirrors the original Christians, yet inflects it with contemporary resonances, the slough as mental health crisis, Vanity Fair as consumer spectacle, Doubting Castle as epistemological relativism. Bunyan's didacticism, rooted in Calvinist soteriology, evolves here into a dialogic narrative, inviting readers to negotiate their own spiritual cartographies. The Wanderer's Passage thus serves as a hermeneutic bridge, linking allegorical tradition to the fragmented subjectivities of our era, urging a pilgrimage not from sin to salvation alone, but from alienation to authentic relationality in a world besieged by simulacra.